Good morning, everybody. Today is the 13th day. Let me say it again. Today is the 13th day of Teves, and we're learning this 11th chapter of Tanya on page 89. Larry's ready. Chaim, Lee, Steve, let's go. Don't forget to give tzedakah. Thank you. And Perek Yud Aleph. Here we go. Overview is the various levels of Rasha. We already talked about the tzaddik, the higher level of tzaddik, the lower level of tzaddik, and how the lower level of a tzaddik has a little bit of vestige of evil that he still has to wipe out. But the various levels of the Rasha depend on the frequency and degree of succumbing to the impulses of the inner animal soul. Sadly, it seems that there are those, we don't can speak about anybody in particular, there are those we may be on the category that we fall prey to, we fall victim. We don't want to look at ourselves as victim, but we may fall victim at times to this. We might fall victim to listen with yours. We might fall victim to we might fall victim to the Yetzer Hara's attack, and we may succumb to doing something which is against chas v'shalom, against what the Eibusher wants us to be doing. And by the way, obviously that's painful, that's hard to say out loud, but that means we're human beings, and that means we're struggling with the evil impulses. And what I'd like to do is, first we're going to go through this. It might be a little bit painful, but at the end we'll realize that we're going to focus on the good times. We're going to focus on the times that we overcame the Yetzer Hara. We're going to focus on the tzaddik-like moments that we experience throughout the day. Just like we already said, that there's always you don't need the English in the library. Get a Tanya on page 89. Okay, so we always said that there's something opposite. There's always something mirroring whatever's going on here and whatever's going on in heaven. So to here, there's always the yin and yang, the back and forth, the ilava olo, the running, the ratzi and shuv. So too, just as we talked about the tzaddik, remember we talked about the tzaddik that has a little tiny vestige of evil. So too, there's a rasha who knows a little good. This means that the good that's in the rasha's neshama, okay, a person who's constantly falling victim to the Yetzer Hara's attacks, but he also has good in him. And where is this nefesh elikis even in the rasha? It's in the brain and the right part of the right side of his heart, as we've explained. Which is opposite the negativity, which is on the left side. So when we have a rasha who knows good, that means that the evil is constantly overpowering his nefesh elikis. That battle that we talked about is constantly being fought, but unfortunately, he's in a weak state. Nevertheless, of course, he has good, and he has to try to draw upon that. Listen, imagine we just celebrated Hanukkah, and the Jewish people were unfortunately defeated. They were defeated, but they were not destroyed, right? They were chased out, and they went with a small army, and they reband, and they trained, and they went, and they fought back the small Jewish army against the great Greek army. So even when the Yetzer Hara seems to constantly be winning, and we seem to be, pushed off to the side, meaning the good in us seems to be completely controlled by the Yetzer Hara, still, it's there. And what we have to do is we have to regroup and come up with a good strategy and then overpower and overtake the Yetzer Hara. This rank 2, when talking about the rasha who knows good, is also divided into many, many different levels, as we talked about yesterday, that within each level there are many, many different levels. In quality and quantity. There are people whose evil is mamish minor, and they're able to, temper it. They're able to overcome it. Even these minor degrees are not permanent. They just happen once in a while. And we have to deal with it, obviously. Obviously, what happens is that the evil does win, and it conquers the small city. We talked about that a person is like a small city inside of him, and there's this constant battle going on. And yes, you may lose the battle, but we have to keep our eye on the prize, and we have to make sure that ultimately we win the war. But it's not the whole body that falls under the dominion, under the power and the rule of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil. It's just a momentary thing that happens. It subjugates that part of the body to control it. Second. And then causing it to be a chariot. You remember we said about the Aves, that the Aves were a Merkava to Hashem. That means that whatever Hashem tells it to do, it does. The Aves would do and listen completely in a nullified manner. It's not about what I want, it's whatever the Eibishter wants. I don't even have to get personal satisfaction. So when the Yetzer Hara controls a certain part, they just follow. The Yetzer Hara says, go after this ice cream. The Yetzer Hara says, go do this, go do that, whatever it is for personal pleasure. Suddenly the person's like, well, why did I do that? I was just doing follow the leader, and I wasn't even thinking with my brain. I'm smarter than that. I don't need to eat that. I don't need to listen to that. I don't need to talk like that. So that's what happens at times. The Hainu. I'm sorry, I skipped something here. And furthermore, what the Yetzer Hara does is it causes part of the body to serve as a garment, wherein one of the animal souls, 3 garments will be clothed. So what's the 3 garments? Machshava, Dibura, Maisa, the thoughts, the speech, and the action. So the Yetzer Hara got you under control. He's controlling your thoughts. You're trying to daven, and in the middle of davening, you're thinking of this, you're thinking of that. You had all the time to do that, last night when you were watching that show. But instead, the Yetzer Hara decided now's the time. And you're like, I'm trying so hard to concentrate. You ever daven and you're like, afterwards, you're like, I tried so hard to concentrate today. And it just seems like the Yetzer Hara had total control of my thoughts. Right, Barry? No. Oh, so you're on level of a tzaddik. That was yesterday. Today we're talking about the rest of us. But the point is, that's as far as mind. And mind is very, very difficult. The Alter Rebbe is going to give us methods and ways to try to control those thoughts. Not easy. That's probably the hardest challenge. And the next thing is speech. Why did I say that? I prepared myself before I picked up the phone. I wasn't going to get upset. I wasn't going to say names. I wasn't going to. And then as soon as I started and he made one comment that ticked me off, and I went and I said words that I shouldn't have said. Well, why couldn't you control it? You already planned that you weren't going to let the Yetzer Hara take over. So the Yetzer Hara has a way of dominating. And we have to constantly fight that. And the last thing is action. I shouldn't have done. I shouldn't have slapped that guy. I shouldn't have punched him in the face. I shouldn't have, whatever it is. It was once in 770. My brother's a wild guy. And this guy pushed him. He was in the way, whatever. He was in a spot he shouldn't have been or whatever. And he's like, touch me one more time. Watch what happens. And I kept on going. I was with Ellie. And I didn't see it, but I heard it. Whack! And I turned around, and the guy had like a mark, he's like, I told you! That was the end of that. You have to understand, my brother was like long hair, bandana, shorts, with like a pink t-shirt. He was like in 770, like, you don't mess with me. I go wherever I want. So he probably realized afterwards he shouldn't have. I mean, I feel he shouldn't have used his hands. Maybe he doesn't feel that way yet. We'll win some Tanya. We'll see how it goes. The Hainu. So when it comes to thoughts and speech, oof. But when it comes to deeds alone, the animal prevails. Oh, he might say, oh, it's only a minor transgression. No, it's not major. By the way, we didn't even get into this yet, but there's one thing if you're doing something which is evil. There's another thing if you're not doing something which is good. So actually, Tanya says it's much worse. Much worse. You have an opportunity to put on phone, you're like, I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I'll do it later, and then tonight you're like, oh, I meant to do it before I started my day, but I just got rushed, and suddenly, when you have an opportunity to bring light into the world and you didn't do it, it's even worse. You do an Avera, we got to fix it. You can go apologize. You can go somehow retroactively. But to not do a mitzvah when you have an opportunity, when you knew you could have done it, and you let the Yetzer Hara just, lull you into laziness or forgetfulness, or even, mamish bad, which is like, no, I don't want to do this. How do I say this? Stubbornness. Or sometimes the evil pervades the thought, and he thinks about sins or things that are even worse than sins. Things, I hope that guy dies. I can't stand it. Like, what? You would never say that out loud, but okay, you have to work your way out of that. So you're like, okay, I don't want him to die. I just don't want him to be near me today. You know what I mean? Like, let's, you get somewhere, and then you're like, you know what? We used to be friends. I hope everything's good for him. I just need some time to, get over whatever it is that went. All right. The Yetzer Hara has his ways, man. He has his ways of getting in our minds, getting in our speech, and getting in, things that we do or don't do. So this is the case, even when one does not actually contemplate sinning, but merely he indulges in contemplation of, he's thinking inappropriate thoughts during davening. He didn't do anything wrong, but he's in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and he has certain vision that he, we shouldn't think during davening. You can see it in the translation. I don't even have to spell it out too much. The Torah tells us you have to guard yourselves from every wicked thing. It doesn't even mean you're doing something, but if you're thinking it in your mind, first of all, you should never think it in your mind. But especially during Shemona Esrei, that seems to be the time on the Yetzer Hara's clock. He says, "Oh, the davening, let's go get him now." One should not harbor impure fantasies by day, so that he will not become polluted at night. So, by the way, there's actually an Indian that whatever you're watching or thinking about intensely before you go to sleep, you end up dreaming about it. So before we go to sleep, you say Shema, you say Krishna, you look in the words, you learn something. You could even go back to the joke where this lady steals a Gemara, the cleaning lady. And the guy says, "Where's my Gemara?" She goes, "I'm so sorry. I took it home. My husband was having trouble sleeping. And I always see whenever you're learning it late at night, you always fall asleep. So I figured I'll bring it to him. Maybe it's like a special, anyway, it's a joke. But you learn a little Torah before you go to sleep at night, and that's what you'll be thinking about. Or even, there's so many shurim on podcasts. You could literally fall asleep listening to something holy and Torah versus the opposite. Oy, shehi shas hakosher la'ases b'Torah b'fana libay v'atola, or in another area. By the way, there's a lot more to read, and it's up to you if you can stay. But this, to me, this is Tanya. This is talking to the real person with real struggles every single day. And there's important stuff before, and there's going to be important stuff later. But if you could take your chayenu and review this, and say, because I can't get to everything. There's a lot of stuff to cover. But this is very, very, very important because it deals with a person, an average person's struggle every single day. Obviously, we don't think we're wicked people. And the way the Alter Rebbe describes it is we're in the category of Rasha V'Tovlei, maybe. Don't think about the definition of the actual word, but it's a person who's constantly being, dealing with the Yetzer Hara that's constantly coming at him on every different level and every different angle. And I don't know, I'm speaking for myself that this is something I can relate to. During the davening, during working, your heart turns, you're trying to learn Torah, and your heart turns to a matter that's not relevant. And, suddenly, I have Yudas in my chavrusa every single day for over 2 years. We're learning together. So I'm looking at the video. I don't see him, unfortunately, because he didn't put his face on the video, but I know he's there. There might even be other people there. Yeah. But sometimes there's a pop-up that comes down, and it just happened now. Somebody, Rabbi, blah, blah, blah. And then my mind starts to wander. So, I'll just try to push it up. But that's what happens. Our minds are constantly moving. That's the biggest thing. And by the way, the mind controls what you say, and it also controls your action. And that's going to be a big part of the way that Tanya is going to help us, give us the tools to deal with the Yetzer Hara. He who awakens at night when he has time to study Torah and turns his heart to vanity is guilty against his own soul. You have the time to learn Torah, Steve, and instead you waste your time. That's not good. I'm not talking about Steve. I'm reminding him things that, this is what Steve is not in this category, B'chal, so he doesn't need to hear this stuff. In any of these instances, if a person falls to the Yetzer Hara's trap, sadly, unfortunately, we do, then he's called the Rasha at that time. You want to say it's a wicked act that he did? I would say it's a Rasha moment of the day. We're not wicked people, but we had a bad moment. Okay, what's Rasha? It's like wicked. What's wicked represents bad. So I said yesterday we were talking about the Tanya. I mean the tzaddik. You can have tzaddik moments throughout the day when you overcome your Yetzer Hara, when you do good, when you do a mitzvah, when you're full of positive energy and you learn and you're davening and you're giving tzedakah and you're doing everything you're supposed to do. So you're going to have tzaddik moments. The opposite is also true. If we fall to our, if we succumb, I don't like to use the word victim. We're not victims, but when we become victimized by the Yetzer Hara, and we are not able to overcome that, and we say things that we shouldn't have said, and we think things that we shouldn't have thought, and we end up doing something that's unfortunately not good. So that's a Russia moment, and we have to pay the price. We have to do tshuva. Yeah, defiles him. So the evil of his animal soul prevails within him, clothes itself in the body, and it defiles him. Makes him tamei. Afterwards, a person is full of remorse, and now he has to He has to ask God forgiveness. Don't worry, Hashem's going to forgive you. You have to be sincere, but Hashem's going to forgive you. Im shah b'tshuva, roy al pi. You have to go back to Hashem. You have to beg Him forgiveness, and Hashem will forgive you as long as you do it in a correct and a sincere and appropriate way. So this is the higher level of the Russia. The Russia like I like to translate it as Russia like moments when we fall and we do negative things and we thought negative thoughts and we weren't strong enough to overcome the temptation and the attack of the Yetzer Hara. Okay, what can we do? Fine. So the Alter Rebbe then discusses the higher level of the Rasha, and now he's going to talk about the other way. There's somebody who's Rasha, whose evil within him prevails even more. And we know such types of people. Listen, all I can say is hopefully it's not us. And because it's very difficult to constantly be struggling, fighting. Some people just give up and say, you know what? Beep it, blank, 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 and I'm going to talk the way I want, and I'm going to, and we have, maybe we even have moments like that, but this is like, and some people you see like, that was a good guy. I went to shoot with that guy. You ever have a friend who like, I grew up with this guy, what happened to him? Not that he's sitting in jail, because but it's like, not even that. It's like the way he talks to his wife, the way he treats his children, the way he cheats in business, the way he thinks, I can't have a relationship with him because, again, hopefully that's not us. And it can't be us because we're learning this and we're fighting it and we're struggling with it. Even if a person, once in a while, something that was giving him a little benefit of the doubt. Once in a while, he's gonna have charata, he's gonna feel remorse, and he's gonna want to do tshuva. But it doesn't work like that. You can't just be evil all the time and just suddenly it's. Okay, you know what? People are weak in different areas. This particular person is so weak, he cannot vanquish the evil. He cannot rid himself of his sins. And he can't be somebody who goes to Hashem and says, I'm sorry, and now he turns over a new leaf. He's still in a terrible, terrible matzav. The wicked are full of remorse. Between sins, he's like, oh, yeah, I wish I would. But then he just keeps going back and doing the same thing. By the way, there are areas in our lives that we just, okay, I can daven, I can learn, but there's a couple, there's certain things, whether it's interpersonal or between us and Hashem behind closed doors, just keep on doing the same thing. And it's tough. It's like an addictive personality in certain areas. Very tough. This is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. So the majority of him is wicked. But nevertheless, in his neshama, in his soul, there's still a little bit. The fact that he has charata means that he has a little bit of good inside of him. One who never feels contrition, never feels, him, he's a Rosh Hashanah, person who doesn't care. He just, there are certain people that step on others, walk through life with just reckless abandon. It's dog eat dog. I'm going to just destroy everybody. I'm going to be, have no feelings whatsoever. That's a Rosh Hashanah. The Yetzer Hara has, and we're talking about a Yid. We're not talking about some, evil tyrant Hamasnik Yimach Shemo. Okay, the takeaway for today is there are many levels of Rishayim. One can be termed a Rasha. We're not going to, here the Alter Rebbe says one can be termed a Rasha in its true definition. If you want to really peel apart the layers and figure out, oh, you did that sin, so right now you're called a Rasha. Whether it's V'toiv Lei V'ra, there are different levels in between. I'm uncomfortable going there. I'll just say we have Russia-like moments in our lives. Why? Because we lost control during that time. Yetzer Hara won. So what could I do? This, however, should not cause a person to be dejected. Every single day when we say Slach Lonu, you're not saying it and going, oh, I'm going to say Slach Lonu, Hashem, Baruch Ata Hashem, Chanan Amar B'Zleach, Hashem's going to forgive me. You're not saying that because, I'm just going to do the same thing. Hashem's always going to forgive me, so I'll just keep doing it. No, you really, really sincerely mean what I did was wrong. I'm going to try again. And you know what? It went good for 2-3 days. I was able to not think about those lustful, evil, corrupt thoughts or say the things that I sometimes say. And you go on the street. And the longer you go on the street, it's like a diet. You diet and then you have a cheat day or right? Ice cream, my God, it depends what kind. I wouldn't even eat milk. Ice cream gives me a stomachache. I love shafudi, by the way. Shabbos. But the point is, you go on and think. So it's if you have a cheat day that's part of your thing, fine. But if there's like somebody's eating something, like just give me a bite, and then suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I finished the whole pie of pizza. And I didn't want to do that. I was going to take 1 or 2 bites. Okay. So you realize you did a mistake, and then you go a week or 2 without doing it. I'm just giving the lowest example. You could think about when you're davening and it comes to mind. And, instead of pushing it out of your mind, you're like thinking about it, and then you just completely get distracted. You're like, okay, but you know what? Tomorrow's another day. We're going to daven, and this time we're going to win the fight. You're going to push it out of your mind. It's sincerity. The Eibishter is expecting natural human tendencies, and the Yetzer Hara has his job to do, as we said, that the king sends this harlot, this prostitute, to go and to seduce the son, the prince. But the harlot, she doesn't want the prince to touch her or to be with her. She has a job to do. The Yetzer Hara has a job to do. So he's going to come at us every single day. And our job is to reject him and say, no, sorry. Put up guardrails, deterrents. This is not something I'm going to deal with. Anyway, that's the Tanya for today. There's a lot to think about. If you have the Sefer, review it. Chazara, chazara, chazara. Everyone have a wonderful, amazing Shabbos.